Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of Beyond the Job Title. Today, we have with us Sudipto Desmukh, who works as a cybersecurity architect with Okta. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Manmeet. I'm glad to be here, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you. Sudipto, could you give us an overview of your role? What does the job entail?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a cybersecurity architect at Okta, I've been here for close to I think I'm on my eighth year now. So I work in the services professional services team as a doing pre-sales functions, right? But basically solving for the customer problems of very large customers in terms of how their deployment would look like, right? So once they procure the product, we primarily work in identity and access management, identity governance, and a lot of other cybersecurity adjacencies as well. So what happens once they procure the licenses, right? So they may have to migrate from another solution, or they may have to kind of adopt new technologies. How long would the adoption or deployment cycle look like? How much would it cost, right? What are the considerations? What are roles and responsibilities from both teams? That is something I kind of tackle on a day-to-day basis. And I have also, been involved in the pre-sale cycles for actual licenses sales, right? So, why is the solution better than other competing solutions in the market? So that is also something that I kind of tag team with the licenses team on.
Nice. So, Dipto, what kind of a journey you have taken to land yourself in this role as a cybersecurity architect?
Yeah, that's a very good question, Manmeet. So I think let's go back a little bit. My education actually, interestingly, was in civil engineering. Luckily, the college was pretty good. It was one of the NITs in India in Karnataka, right? NIT Suratkal in Karnataka. Earlier, long back in the day, it used to be called the regional engineering colleges. So that college, I got placed in campus at Oracle, right? We were all together at Oracle, right? So this was way back in 2007, and I was one of the only ones in the non-tech branches, right? Specifically chemical engineering, metallurgy, mining, and civil engineering. I was the only one who got that opportunity. So that's where it started, right? And I other than taking a couple of courses in programming in college, I did not have much background. So the Oracle journey was interesting. I think it was a big learning curve, but that's where I realized that I like what I do in tech, right? I can learn these things. So that is where it started. And I started as a Java J2E application developer in the product engineering team, right? So that was a journey where I learned a lot about how a product is made. And it was, we were all in the Fusion middleware team, Fusion applications team, right? It was a 0 to 1 product pretty much, right? Like it was supporting of an on-prem product, which was like there was the Web 2.0 revolution going on at that time, right? So it was very interesting to work right from functional design to prototypes and to actual proof of concepts to actual products, and like that was going in system testing. That is where I was like, hey, I want to try something new. It was 3 years at Oracle, and I moved to a company called Quest, which was a boutique consulting firm, US based, Dallas, Texas based, but had a wing in Hyderabad in India. And that was my first foray into customer facing roles, right? Which was at that time, obviously, we did not did not think through this in detail on how life is going to change. But when I look back, I think it was a pretty big shift, right? Because you are working and I know you have taken these shifts as well, so you can relate, right? And I hope your audience can relate as well. Is you're working when you're in engineering teams, you're working mostly in offices, right? You're working with internal folks, and like that time the product had not launched, so it was a lot of internal collaboration, right? So your stakeholders are internals, executives are internal, and things like that. Obviously, there was being at Oracle in India, we were obviously interacting with people across the world. But when I moved to the customer facing role, you had to interact with customers as well, right? And we were working on the implementation side of things, right? So at Oracle, it was the Fusion middleware product was being implemented for Oracle's internal applications. Here it was for customer applications. So understanding the business side of things, right? That is something which was like interesting. Like, why is the customer doing this? And what are the timelines? And also that, in consulting, especially when you're in post-sales implementation, you're billed by the hour, right? So what is the value of that process? And then I think I did that for a couple of years, and then I kind of raised to my management that, I would like to do more, right? Like, I feel I'm not able to realize my potential. So I luckily got an opportunity for a short-term visit for a US based client, right? This was in 2011, I believe. San Diego was one of the first customers in healthcare. And that was a pretty amazing experience, right? Because directly being in the customer office and working was very interesting. And now, kind of tying this back to, this is all Java, J2E, service-oriented architecture and things like that. So I did another one of these on-site visits in 2012, which was kind of similar domain. And then I realized that, there are a lot of interesting opportunities in US, like the work-life balance as well. I'm like, wow, I can get back home at 5:30 versus in India, you're like, somehow getting home at 9:30, 10, all those things. And again, like, it was a choice we made, but in US, that was something which excited me, and as well as how much you could travel, how much you could learn, be directly customer facing, right? Be closer to the fire hose, if you will. That was something that excited me. So 2013 Jan, I moved to US. Again, did the same thing I was doing for a couple of years, more customer facing experience. Around 2014, and this is where my cybersecurity journey starts, right? And we were talking about this a bit, casually before the start. So 2014 was when I was like, I want to do something new. And it's something that I think you mentioned as well, is I always have tried to be in the area of tech where the cross section is smaller, right? So if there are lesser people, the technology is hotter and kind of growing, right? Like, if you think of things like the Gartner hype cycle, like it's kind of just reaching the hype or just on the way to the hype. That is always a good point to be in that technology from a learning perspective, from a growth perspective, right? And so initially, Oracle Fusion middleware used to be that. And I realized after a few years that, it was kind of reaching the plateau, right? Um, and security was being heard about more in conversations, as I was doing a lot of these deployments or architectures for large customers, Fortune 500, Fortune 100 in the US, and other areas of the world. I was seeing that security was becoming a very common discussion. So 2014 is where I kind of got into identity and access management with the Oracle stack, which was on-prem. So, did a lot of pre-sales as well, right? So pitching to customers on why the company solutions is something they should go with. And also working with a lot of large customer deployments, both on the consumer side as well as the internal IT side or the workforce side, as you can imagine. So did this for a couple of years. I've also done a couple of roles as a business analyst in between, right? Because in a services company, you have to be kind of billable, right? So whatever comes your way. So that was a good experience. But net, I think this experience gave me a lot of different angles, and made me understand why customer facing problems are something that everyone wants to solve for. Like, obviously, there is the money that the customer pays to the company, but what do we need to focus in terms of business problems, and why timelines are important, and how kind of agile waterfall models, those things work, right? 2015 or 2016 timeframe was when I started looking for a job. Wanted to go into something different, and my wife actually was telling me that, hey, you have been in Oracle and Oracle related sectors for a long time, and also the cloud. There's a lot of cloud based projects, so why don't you look for something there? So Luckily, I found Okta, which was again not Oracle, and also on the cloud. So that kind of fit well. So started with deployment or the post-sales team, moved to solutions engineering or sales engineering, which is kind of pre-sales for the licenses side. And more recently moved to this role where I'm a cybersecurity architect, again, working on pre-sales for the role of deployment, right? So that kind of has been the journey. I have taken quite a few pivots in the middle to get to where I am at. But I think it's been a fun journey, and I've always tried to be where the action is, or where kind of the visibility or demand is more, if you will.
Very
Hope
nice.
that
Very.
answers your question.
Yeah, yeah. So Sudipto, you mentioned a bit about the excellent work-life balance in the job. So what does your typical day look like? I'm just curious to understand how do you start typical day? What all, as a architect,
Yeah,
what all activities you have to do?
yeah, that's a good question. So now, work-life balance has kind of changed a lot from the past years, right? Like, especially when you work in consulting, the customer does not want to pay you unless you want to learn something, right? Which is not customer billable. They don't want to pay you for outside the 8 hours or something, right? So you could potentially wrap up early. When you are in roles which is kind of pre-sales or things where you are kind of attached to as an architect to the sales teams and also evangelism, right? Like you want to get the world to know more about your products or the space, your work kind of definitely spills out to the 9, 10, 11 hours range, right? So typically I start my day at work at around 9 a.m. and go up till 6:30 because I do cover both posts in a way, and try to put in like 30 minutes to 1 hour before I wrap up at night, just to prepare for, say, if I'm learning something new, or if there is something to prepare for the morning. So yeah, it becomes like, those 11ish hour days during a lot of weekdays, because there is a lot of preparation, and during the day, it is a lot of meetings, right? A lot of customer facing meetings. I would say, like, it would be roughly, if I were to kind of put a number, it would be probably 40% customer facing meetings, 35% internal meetings, and the rest of 25% is either me preparing a collateral where my team can learn something, or I can share something, or I'm learning something new, maybe a new product, new trend, or things like that. And also I try to keep up with the cybersecurity space in general, right? So that's kind of a mix of how the day looks like.
Nice. And in terms of your role, what are some of the things which you like and some of the things which you don't like in your role?
Yeah, good question. What I like is, like we were talking about, I think every customer conversation or every conversation that we have, there's a lot to learn, right? I think when I was in engineering roles, again, there's a lot to learn there as well. But I think with customer facing roles specifically, and in cybersecurity, the interaction points are a lot, right? So as long as I am inquisitive, or someone is inquisitive, they can learn a lot. It might be personality related. It might be, if I have customer empathy, I can understand the pain point that a customer has, right?
Mm.
Like specific to their business. Like, say someone unfortunately had a data breach, and we are talking to them on how can we help, and I actually understanding and empathizing with their problem and what situation they are in personally and professionally. That is
Mm-hmm.
something, if we understand and actually really we sincerely try to understand that can go a long way in very different directions, right? With respect to your life, your profession, and things like that. So I think that is a part with the multiple interactions, the dynamic nature of the work, which comes with customer facing roles. That's something I like. I like to be in the cybersecurity space as well, because um, this is evolving at a very fast pace, especially with cloud security, ransomware, and things like that. There is multiple new things every day, right? So that kind of gives you the motivation that, hey, this is the right sector to be in. This is the right sector where we are investing our career, our lives, and we can grow, right? In terms of what I don't like, do you have a question?
No, no, no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In terms of what I don't like, was, it's not so much that I don't like. I prefer. I would like to put it as, I hope it was different. Is like sometimes there are too many just back-to-back calls, right? Which I think has been common in the post-COVID era. And then, I would like, I would like to have more time to learn and kind of explore the space or contribute, rather just be on back-to-back calls, right? So that is kind of the low side of things. And also, sometimes it can get pretty challenging to deal with different um, people and personalities, right? Like it just depends. So like if you're having a bad day and you have a tough call or a tough customer, it could be a tough internal call as well. I think like making sure that you still put your best self and you forget whatever happened, either personally or otherwise. Um, that sometimes can be challenging, right? Like we have to always put our best self to work, which is fine and it should be the way it is. But I'm just saying that sometimes it does take an emotional or mental toll on you, right? Because it's a long day and we are working from home, so it's not like you could just go on a coffee room break or talk to 10 people and things like that. So those things, which is generic, right? It's not related to the job, it's about work from home and things like that, which is, I think I like working in the office way more than
Mhm.
working from home.
So at the moment, what's the mix? Are you working 2 days from office and rest from home, or
No, I
100%
have been
remote?
actually, last 7.5 years, I've been working from home because there is no office in this location for Okta. But at the same time, I'm also a field resource, right? So I, like if there is travel, I travel. There's not a lot of travel going on right now, but the idea is like if there is travel, then you go to customer sites and sites and travel and be with them.
Understand. And is there a particular sector you focus on, or you are sector agnostic in terms of where your
When you
clients are?
say sector, you mean vertical, right? Like healthcare or finance,
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
No, I cover business across the Americas. So I support our sellers, right? Whoever sell our cybersecurity products. So I support sellers, but they are across Americas, which means US and Canada, and across, when you say segments, right? So commercial, enterprise, strategic, which is the Fortune 500 typically, and public sector as well. So I cover all those segments, and then within those segments, you can have different verticals, right? So I'm sector agnostic as such, you can say.
Nice. So if I were to ask you one career advice which somebody gave you a lot, what would that be?
I think, yeah, there has been a lot of career advice, good career advice over the last, of 17, 18 years of my career. And I think I've been grateful for a lot of that advice. I think some of the things which helped a lot, and again, it's all a process, right? One is, I think, especially, and a lot of when we were younger, sometimes you're like, hey, how do I connect to this executive? Or this person who's doing great in the career, right? Like a lot of people are asking them for help, right? Why should they help me, right? One of the, like, it almost sounded like an anti-pattern when I heard it first time. Like, try to offer them help, correct? So like try to, like, if it's over LinkedIn, maybe send them something which might be relevant if you can talk in person or things like that. Like if they are asking a question, say if it's your internal company Slack, Teams, or whatever, try to help them out, or try to offer them
Mhm.
help if you meet them in person, right? That's always a good way to build a rapport. And eventually, and the best way to help people is to not expect anything in return, right? Because otherwise it's, you cannot be genuine then. And then you would get, like, as a part of karma, you will get that whatever help back. And it's more about building a relationship, a friendship, right? I think that always works. That is one. The other thing is, I think career growth wise, is we always think that, you know, it's common thinking that if I work well, if I do my job well, career growth will happen, right? Which is true to the most part. That is the core premise of doing this. But also, I think one of the speakers calls this the loop, right? Doing your job well is great, but also asking your manager what are their top three key priorities or three pain points and how you could help them solve those. And those might be outside my day job, right?
Mm.
But if I can solve something for my manager, take something off their plate as much as possible, right? Like I'm not asking anyone to work 15 hours a day to do that or to do your manager's job, but like one thing which is possible. And we are all humans, right? They might be missing something, or you might be good in something which is not exactly your day job, but you can really solve it quickly or have a good idea, right? And again, genuinely, sincerely trying to do that, that is a very good way for career progress. Because if you have helped your manager or their manager sometimes, right, skip level to solve a problem which might be on their plate, an organizational challenge, then I think career growth is a given, right? So these are things which I kind of understood and got that advice pretty late in my career. I wish I knew this before. So I hope that some of your readers are, get some help from this advice.
Nice, thanks. So, Dipto, so you have transitioned from being an engineer to an architect role. If somebody else wants to move into becoming an architect, what would be your advice? Especially, so there are a couple of questions here. So, if you outlay how much of a demand there are for architect roles, yeah, within the companies, what is the future like, and how can somebody, what kind of skills are needed, and how can somebody make a career transition to being an architect?
Yeah, sure. So I'll answer the question in two parts. One is like generic architect, and another is cybersecurity specific, if that
Mhm.
makes sense. So I think, and then some of your other speakers have mentioned this, right? Like keeping up to date with the space and reading a lot. Either it could be reading, basically learning, right? It could be reading, watching videos, doing courses, certifications. That kind of thing is important. Also, it is important to, like, the role that, if say someone is an engineer and wants to become an architect, who's the architect who's there either in your friend circle or in at work, and kind of ask them what's their day in life about, and ask them same questions that you asked, right? Like what is has been their career path, what did they do, right? And what can, like, I do to take these steps, right? Like having, sometimes like just learning is not enough. Having that outside you know influence or suggestions or that mentorship is important as well, right? uh, and again, knowing the core of your space is super important. And also another thing is like shadow these people, right? Like if an architect is taking a, say, a customer meeting or doing a project, ask your manager, ask them if you could just listen in, be a fly on the wall, right? I think, and
Mm.
take notes, take enough notes, ask them questions, and if you can help with something, right? Ask them if, hey, this is an idea I have. If you like, I could help you with this, or here's something I thought, it may or may not be relevant, but I just thought to share, right? And again, like no expectation of anything in return, very genuinely trying to help out that person. That always helps. So the more you can see and be have that lived experience of what an architect role is like, that would be better. Also, in terms of cybersecurity, I think, especially for people early in the career, um, taking a lot of, similar pattern, but also making sure you take a lot of courses, right? Like, for example, like a core of a lot of cybersecurity or cloud security is network security, right? So, like, make sure
Backbone.
that you take basic courses on those. Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was saying
So,
identity and access management and network security are like the core, isn't it? In the
exactly, exactly, right. And a very good point. And sometimes some of those things, like, I think we are kind of, we sometimes get wired in this world to say that, hey, this specific thing is very shiny, right? Like, say, cloud security and this particular thing about Gen AI security. The thing is, like, people do not even have multi-factor authentication on in their system, right? And we are talking
Mhm.
about Gen AI security. Like, some things can wait. Like, if you get your basics clear, then it's very easy to build on top of it, right? So I think, like, if I were to summarize, I think keeping your basics clear, and you can learn pretty much anything these days. You just need that focus and that deep work, right? And you need to know what you want to learn, and time box it and clear your basics, and then make sure that in addition to that self learning or classes, you actually get field experience by the shadowing, making relationships,
Mhm.
being on actual implementations, doing a proof of concept, and get your hands dirty, in short, right?
Understand. Thank you so much, Sudipto. With that, we come to the end of the podcast. Thank you
Mhm.
so much for coming and sharing your valuable insights with all the viewers. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure, Manmeet. Thanks for inviting me.